Okay, well, I think that should work. I have no idea how long this video is going to be, so you guys will just have to bear with me a little bit because I'm not touching my camera when I'm sticky. That's why I'm doing a video. It's a really nice camera, it takes really good pictures, and fiberglass will really destroy it. I'm using the same paintbrush as I used last night because I cleaned it out. Just because you used a paintbrush doesn't mean that it's garbage. I cleaned it out with a little bit of lacquer thinner, wiped it out good. Just making sure that this stuff is thoroughly mixed. Probably have a tiny bit too much hardener in it, but I'm not building something that's got to support any kind of weight, so I'm not terribly concerned about it. I've already torn my fiberglass into little pieces because it's easier to work around the small corners with the smaller pieces. I like to wet it out before I put fiberglass on it, but it's not absolutely set in stone that you have to. It just helps to make sure that you got some on it. It's already been ground with 36 grit. I'm going up a little too high, but there's some stress cracks that I want to get rid of, and that's a really good way to get rid of them too. So we should be good to go here. I also like to wet out my matting a little bit. Sometimes before I put it on, it helps. I don't know if I'm going to continue to do it because I don't have a whole lot of resin mix, but it does help some. No, I don't think I'm going to bother doing that. I think that's just too big of a pain in the butt. I'm going to try sanding over here. Hopefully I don't mess up the video. Yeah, you can still see it. I don't feel that it requires a woven cloth for this kind of repair. As a matter of fact, in all the years that I worked in the truck shop, and I fixed some pretty nasty hoods that were missing half a fender and had hinges tore right off of them, and I don't actually recall ever having anything woven. Although this matting is a little bit lighter density, it's not as thick. I guess you could call it the weight of the matting. It's not as heavy as the stuff I'm used to using in the body shop, but it's all I could buy over the counter at the parts store. And it'll be fine. You're just going to take more layers of it. And I'm not working with a really thick piece of fiberglass to begin with, so it's alright. If I was working with something half an inch thick fiberglass, I probably want that heavier weight of matting because I could get some build faster. I'm not worried about that. I don't want this thing half an inch thick. I want it roughly as thick as it was when it was made. And not all of the stuff that I'm putting on here I'm going to leave on. I'm going to grind a bit of it off too. Not today, but tomorrow some of it will be coming off. What I'm doing when I'm poking at it with this is I'm working the air bubbles out of it. Air bubbles are bad. They reduce the strength and they make it harder to finish. And this is a good way to get the fiberglass to conform to the shape as well. It'd be difficult to do a corner with a roller. A roller works excellent if you have a big flat or kind of a gradual curve to an area that you want to do. It's awesome. But I don't need it for this. I took a couple pictures of it just so you guys could see what they look like. if you're doing something big like a canoe or something like that, I'd recommend it. A little bit more on the edge because it needs to be built up a little thicker. I should have wetted this out first, but that's okay. I put the duct tape on there to hold it up. Sometimes it likes to fall off and it likes to get pushed in, and I don't want either. This isn't going to be done with this application of fiberglass. I have a little bit more to do on the inside, but I decided that I wanted to do the outside. I left it very, very thin, so I'm not going to be removing much material. I'm actually putting most of the material onto the outside. Because of the curve, it's easier for me to grind to the shape I want from the outside than it is to try and work with the concave. I'm sure anybody that has done any kind of work with a grinder will understand exactly what I'm talking about. So hopefully this video doesn't run too long, but like I said, I'm not touching my camera until I'm done laying this up. I've almost got enough on there now. I don't want to make it too thick, but I'd rather get it in one shot on the outside. Just trying to pick which piece I want here. I like to tear it. I don't like to have sharp edges on it. It makes it harder to blend into the surface around it. It's something I was taught when I was doing it in the shop, is not to cut it because it makes a squared off edge. It makes it harder to make it disappear. So it does help to stagger it out or feather it out as you're putting it on. You put it on a little farther, a little farther, a little smaller. It's difficult to pick that with what I'm working with right here. I removed a lot of the fiberglass from this corner because it was shattered. Shattered fiberglass has no strength. It's basically junk. There's still a small amount of it there. There's still some up here in this corner. I'm not going to grind this whole thing away. I should have just bought a new lid, but I decided to fix it. I dropped another $120 on this resin so that I'd have the right stuff to use, because I picked the wrong shit to start with because I was thinking of the bags that I sanded down. And honestly, putting $700 worth of paint on this thing, this stuff is not going to be falling off. So that's why I decided to buy this stuff. It's not really that I wanted to spend the money, trust me. I didn't want to spend it. I'm cheap. But when it comes to $700 worth of paint, you want to make sure that what you're putting the paint on is done right the first time. It starts getting really expensive and very freaking irritating to be redoing stuff. In the shop I was working in, I would rather spend more time doing it the first time than to ever see it again. Anytime you start redoing stuff, you're losing money. And you're pissing customers off. So you're better off to spend a little bit extra time and do it right the first time. What I'm doing right now is I'm just not quite happy with how the fiberglass is sitting. It's maybe a little thicker in one spot than it should be. And I'm just kind of moving it around. It's not hard yet. You can push it around and pull it around with your brush. Basically, you're making it the shape you want it to be. Just a little more on that corner. After your gloves start to get sticky, then it starts to become difficult to work with them. Sometimes rolling it up in a ball so that it falls off helps. I'm going to just use this up. There's not very much left. It's not really a waste. I can take it off with my grinder. I haven't been itchy yet doing this on this job because I wore my coveralls and I put my gloves up over top of the coveralls so that the fiberglass couldn't get into my sleeves. Like I said, this is not my first dance with this stuff. I've done it lots before. At the end of the day, I've had 1/4 of an inch of this shit on my forehead. I know all about being itchy, and I don't like it. I don't think anybody does, but it happens. I think that's plenty. So the less grinding I gotta do, the better I like it. And again, this is SMC compatible fiberglass resin. This stuff, in addition to that, it varies depending on the manufacturer, but this stuff is not mixed with MEKP. This stuff is actually mixed with cream hardener. And I actually went back 2 or 3 times looking at it before I decided to buy it because of the fact it's mixed with cream hardener and it's not something I'm familiar with. I just didn't know if I trusted that. But it seems to be working okay, and Evercoat is a pretty good brand name. It's been around for a long time. So I figure, you know what? I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. They've never done anything to make me believe they don't make anything good. So I'm going to pull off. I think I've got a clean spot on my glove. No, maybe not. I got a paintbrush. I'm going to shut this camera off. I'm not touching my camera, just like I said.